ARU, Andy Raymond, Unfiltered. This is one particular day in the sporting calendar, my friend. We are on exactly the same page. I'm a cockroach like you, and I can't stand them, mate. I can't stand the Queensland, mate. Inbred, corn-fed, sleep in your mum's bed with your cousin Jed.
Absolutely, and unfortunately live up here amongst them, so I tend to stay indoors and in the safety of my own place for a couple of days. Go the Mighty Blues. Yeah. I can't wait. I think it's going to be terrific. As we discussed last week, mate, disappointed that it's in Adelaide. Really am. You don't quite have the same level of build-up, if that makes sense. But really excited, mate. And it's terrific, and it's something I guess only us guys understand. I would love, and I think New Zealand Rugby League in a whole has missed a trick here. I don't know if you could do North versus South Island. I don't know what the parameters are, but something similar I think is a must for New Zealand Rugby League at some stage. And I'm stunned it hasn't taken place.
Okay, look, what I'll do is I'll just put a full stop there in your sentence for rugby. And just let me explain this. I think it's a noble idea as far as rugby league is concerned, but rugby league just doesn't have the presence here in New Zealand. And I don't know whether it's because the Warriors are the only professional side, but the actual club competition, it just doesn't have enough impetus, I don't think, to be able to get this off the ground. But if it was rugby, for example, and what you've got to do is you've got to tap in here, Andy, as well, into some kind of a natural rivalry. We used to have big-time NPC rivalries. Growing up in Wellington, I hated Waikato. I hated Auckland. I hated Canterbury. Back in 1997, there's a very famous photo of an 8-year-old kid holding up a sign, "I hate you, Auckland," for a Canterbury-Auckland game. The rivalry was already there. And if you've got one, I think, unifying anti-force in New Zealand in terms of sport, is the rest of the country hates Auckland. So you'd have to, that's where you want to start. You want to start where the naturalness is. Everyone outside of Auckland, see, it's the same as when you're living in Sydney, mate. Everyone outside of Sydney in Australia hates Sydney. They think you're a bunch of flash buggers with your fake tans and mirror sunglasses and you all, up your own backsides, love each other and polished white teeth and so forth. Well, the same kind of thing exists here in New Zealand. There's a little brother, little sister thing about Auckland. That's where you tap in. And because it's our national game, it is the dominant game. I think that if an Origin series happened here, it would have to probably be with rugby. That might offend all the leagueies, but I think, it would, to be sustainable, I think that would be the only way to do it.
You're right. You know what so much of this build-up reminds me of, and this goes back to 1980, the original Origin. It's almost the old professional wrestling theory. You need the good guy and the bad guy. You need someone to cheer, someone to boo, but you need to be engaged in both teams, and that's what it is. It's good guy versus bad guy. It just depends on which side of the border you live.
Well, and this is why you can't fake it to make it. You've got to look. I've quoted already today. Yankees versus Red Sox. Over the generations, players come to these teams and they brawl on the field because there is something inherent in that rivalry. Celtic versus Rangers, United versus Liverpool. The Ashes, when Australia plays England, it doesn't matter who's playing, you still hate each other. That's what you're kind of tapping into. And we know it's not hate, it's not real hate, but it's hate in a sporting rivalry, which is where we can express. And I think this is actually a really healthy thing, Andy, is that you've got to be able to express your anger. You've got to be able to express your frustration. You've got to be able to express the fact that you don't like things in life. And doing it in sport is probably one of the most harmless actual ways of doing it. I mean, I'm not talking about those goons who go to the A-League Melbourne matches and think they're full thugs. I mean, those people need to be birched in the middle of the street. I'm just talking about us normal people who actually want to yell and scream at those other fans and go, isn't there some normality attached to this argument?
Absolutely there is, and like everything, there's a fine line. When you jump into the grandstands as a paying spectator, you've got every right to cheer, boo, heckle, laugh, cry, show every emotion possible. You don't get personal, you don't get nasty. In front of kids, you don't use bad language, just simple things. But absolutely, sport is, it provokes all these emotions and, a successful sport needs it, but they need both the good and the bad. And I think it's wonderful. You're right about the soccer crew. You're also, we can probably throw in the disappointments from Napier the other night with people jumping onto the field. Just nothing. I mean, really, it's just nothing. It's stupid. You might get a giggle out of it for, a day
Well, we don't understand because we're not on TikTok. We're not part of that generation. We don't spend hours of our life every day looking at something and hoping to get a few giggle likes back from it. Like I looked at I was driving to work today and I saw a billboard for the 40-hour famine, mate. And I didn't actually realise this, but it's not a famine. You can actually give anything up for 40 hours. And it's got a photo of a guy throwing his cell phone away. And I just thought, the first thing that I'd do if I was in government, mate, is I'd get this generation, I'd put them in cattle trucks, I'd confiscate all of their electronics, and I'd take them down to a farm and I'd make them pull dead sheep out of each other's ewes. You know what I mean, Andy?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. A little bit of old school discipline, a little bit of old school discipline. Yeah. So, mate, that was disappointing from Napier on the weekend because there was a wonderful crowd. I really enjoyed the match. I was calling the match over this side of the ditch for radio over here. Enjoyed everything about it until the final 10 minutes, and you sort of got the feeling once the first one ran on, there was going to be more.
It was organised. It was organised, mate. It was one of those things where they send around a little message to each other and they have a little face group toss off and they go, oh, well, you do it and then I'll do it. And then, do you know what? And how about this? This will make you sick. They didn't detain them, mate. They let them all go. They were all outside the ground within minutes afterwards because the soft-ass law here in New Zealand, if you arrest people, then you've got to look at the crime stats. Is it weighted towards certain ethnicities and other, this is what New Zealand is like these days, mate. Oh, my God, Look, we don't arrest ram raiders, mate. We offer them love and hugs instead. These people who go in with hammers and rob jewellery shops in the middle of the day. So how can you bring the full weight of the law down on people that run onto a football field? Plus, the way that our law is at the moment, unless it's a world championship event, like a World Cup or something, there are no laws. Yeah. There are no laws, mate.
It's just ridiculous. And we've got the same type of nanny state over here. If 8 people were to get arrested for doing the same thing but the wrong thing, the headline would be X amount of Indigenous and X amount of, European. No. It's if 8 people get arrested, 8 idiots get arrested. There's your headline.
There's your headline.
It doesn't. Exactly right. It doesn't matter what colour you are.
Doesn't matter, mate. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
None of it matters.
No. Your ethnicity or what your gender or where you were born or how old you are has got nothing to do with you running onto a field and trying to disrupt a game. That's just called idiocy, is what it is. That's the commonality that exists between you. Let's move on from that and talk about this game tonight. Where is it going to be won and lost for you? Who are the key players?
Every state of origin is won or lost in the middle. Whoever is the most physical and the most dominant wins it. The forwards will win you the match in the middle of the field, and the backs will determine by how many points you win the match. So it's crazy Tavita Pangai, Payne Haas and Junior Paulo, basically up against the Queensland pack of Pat Carrigan, Tommy Flegler, Lindsay Collins. It's who's dominant and who's fastest in the middle, and that's what Origin was born on: the physicality in the middle of the field. Let them bash each other for 30 minutes, and determine who's on top. Then they'll start playing footy.
Why is it always, or is it just a perception thing? Andy Raymond Unfiltered is with us here on the platform, people, and you can listen to this full interview back on Platform Plus. Highlights of it will be on our podcast, available at 5 every night, and I goddamn hope you're downloading our podcast every night, mate. iOS, it's only sport, it's on available.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right.
As I always say, that you can never have enough Devlin in your life.
Andy, why is the perception that it always is faster and more physical? Is that real in terms of rugby league? Is there something about these games when you look at them, they're just, I don't know, they just seem, half a step faster. The tackles seem so much harder. Is that just us imagining that, or is that real?
No, it's legitimate, and I think that's the case in any sport where you get the elite together. These are the very best of the very best, and as a result, they're generally maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit more talented, and you add all those increments together, and you get the best of the best doing it against each other. quite often it's fast, it's brutal, and, exhilarating. You shuffle forward in your seat. But quite often it's not such a great game, which, really defies logic, because you'd think if you've got the 34 of the best, you're going to have a terrific game, but it doesn't always work that way. I think tonight is potentially going to be a bit ugly. I really do, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I don't think a lot of the big boys are in terrific form, but I think physically and mentally they'll get up for it. The other thing is we're playing at the Adelaide Oval, which is an oval, not a rectangular field. And it takes a while, especially for the kickers, to get their bearings, because you generally, as a kicker, look up and you know straight away where the sideline is.
Right. Yeah.
Because the fence is right there. And both sets of halves over the last 24 hours and both sets of kickers have done a bit of work at the Adelaide Oval trying to get their bearings. And it sounds good and it sounds productive, but it's not that easy, because in the heat of the battle, when the heart rate's up and the decisions have to be instantaneous, you don't get to look for markers on the outside of the field that you're going to kick to. It just becomes second nature. So the kicking won't be as precise tonight. I can guarantee you of that. And as a result, it might get a little ugly, but its origin, that just means more physicality. So you beauty.
Do you endorse them taking it to Adelaide, taking it to Perth, or do you think they see? Thank you, because I feel the same way. I feel, especially after COVID, that true league fans in the centres where rugby league is the number one game, and that's New South Wales and Queensland, deserve to have it there. Look, I understand the commercialisation of it, but I just think, it's like the AFL bringing a game here to New Zealand. Sure, okay, rah, and all of that. But come on, this is rugby league. It should be played in the hinterland. It should be played in the heartland. If you're going to actually move it any, we'll take it to the boondocks in New South Wales or something and play it there. Give the fans take it to where the people who've supported your game loyally for years live.
Yep, agreed, and you'll sell out the venue, and you'll sell it out for premium seat prices. Adelaide Oval isn't a sellout tonight. There is a lot of tickets available. They're offering 2 for 1 in the last couple of days. 2 tickets for the price of 1. I'd be filthy if I'd spent $195 on a ticket somewhere decent, and the bloke in front of me has spent $87. Geez, I'd be.
Yeah, you should have every right to be spewing, mate. And look, and they, but this is the rod that they make for their own bag. How are you calling it tonight? Who wins tonight?
Mate, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think Queensland win. I think some of their bigger guys are in better form, and I think they're a heavier pack. New South Wales have picked a faster pack of forwards. I think the physicality is going to suit the Queenslanders. Hey, buddy, on a very different note, news just in, Jason Riles has turned down the St George Illawarra Advances to become their head coach from next season onwards. So the search will move into part 2. Riles was the favourite. He was the preferred option. He said no, and it will come down, I think, to Dean Young or Ben Hornby, with the latter probably getting the nod in a couple of weeks' time.
What does it say about the Dragons, eh? As popular as your old girlfriend, aren't they? Yeah, go on then. Try and get another boyfriend, eh? Yeah, good luck on that. You're not going to get one like me, are you? Right. That's right, mate. Hey, you, Andy Raymond, unfiltered, mate. What do we got on the podcast this week?
Mate, a great interview with Jimmy Dimmick, who...
I remember that name. He was a Cantab. Wouldn't he play for the Doggies, didn't he?
He certainly did, and he was one of the first Tongans to play in the National Rugby League. And he talks about his mum coming from Tonga over to Australia as basically a pioneer in rugby league and sacrificing everything for the family. Really terrific story from a guy that doesn't like doing interviews, doesn't do a lot of interviews. We've also gotten a podcast coming out tomorrow Mark Geyer, Joe Tarpany, Tommy Travojevic talking about his Dally M Middle win, and the great Craig Coleman and Brent Tate. So we got all bases covered on Andy Raymond Unfiltered this
Love
week.
you to bits, mate. We'll talk again next Wednesday. That's ARU, Andy Raymond Unfiltered.